What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/ChoosingBeggars.
This story's called Art for Cheap. Fresh out of my BA in Fine Art, when thinking of doing a master's, which I didn't do, a friend of my mom's asked if I would paint a portrait of her family, 6 people, in oil paint. I don't say no, but begin to price it up knowing she would like it to be on canvas in A2, 16.5 by 23.5 inches or bigger. For those who aren't artists, a basic canvas would cost £10 or $12.5, but I prefer premium quality. Then the base coat, linseed oil, paints, etc. would have been about £40 or $50 or more, as again, I like premium quality. Also, she wanted a hyper-realism look, which basically means it looks like a photo. So this would require more time, effort, and paint to layer it up to achieve the desired look. I would have taken at least 20 hours on this, possibly up to 40, as it is oil and it would require a long drying time between layers. This is my method I work with and it works best for me, so I don't mess with it. I priced it all up, I round up on supplies and hours to allow for excess in case of unforeseeable circumstances and using more time or resources. Cost looked like this. Canvas £20, material £60, hours estimated at 40 multiplied by £7, £280, total £360. The £7 per hour payment for my time was the current minimum wage. Then friends discount, which technically I didn't need to apply as she wasn't my friend, but I did because it was my mom's friend who had been wanting a nice painted portrait for years. This discount was 15%, so brought down the cost from £360 to £306. It meant that had I taken 40 hours, knowing me, it's highly likely as I am meticulous, I would have worked for 7 to 8 hours for free as I couldn't budge on materials or canvas. No painting without this. For the size, skill, and experience, she knew my qualifications and had seen my work. It was a bargain. I personally didn't seek to do it, but was keen on the idea with payment as I was very busy at the time with work. I was able to shift things around to fit the time in. She heard the price and saw the figures and said she was hoping I would do it for £20 or $25 or less. No. I explained that she had a discount applied and referred back to the quota. She still asked for £20 and I said that won't even buy the canvas. A good quality one that is sturdy and will last, let alone the materials. She persisted and acted like she was doing me a favor by letting me paint her family. I reminded her I am a university graduate with a good grade and don't need this help. I explained that I am not going to pay money from my own pocket to paint a huge picture when I'm busy enough, but was willing to make an exception if she was to pay the full price. I also reminded her that I don't owe her anything. Yet, I was nice enough to give her a discount when she was my mother's friend, not mine, which would mean I wouldn't get paid for some of my time. She persisted at £20, so I told her there is a lovely shop in the mall that puts a picture of your choice on a canvas that size for £20. I suggest doing it smaller, in a different, less time-consuming style and in acrylic. A3, 11.5 by 16.5 inches at £70 or $84, which is 17.5 pounds canvas, 5-pound paint, and 7 hours painting at £49, totaling $71.50. Screw the 1.5 pounds. She said, "But canvases are poor and the images are grainy at the shop, but I want A2, oil and hyper-realistic." Well, that's what you get for £20 at the shop or $70 in acrylic. You realize it's more because it's my time, skill, and effort. Even a professional photographer would charge you more than £20 as it's their time, skill, and effort that you're paying for. If you want a painting in oil with my skills, it's now £360. I can only do I thought it was £306 before. Why is it £360 now? You no longer get the friends and family discount. She didn't get the painting, and my mom, also an artist but in a different style, and not with oil, doesn't speak to her anymore. She was horrified at what the woman was asking. Bench. Painting is meticulous work, okay? I suck at it. I've never, ever been a good artist. So, I can't even begin to know all of the work that goes into making a hyperrealistic painting, because think of all the shading you have to get right and all the lighting and the shadows and the textures. It just gives me anxiety thinking about it. So guys, know your worth and don't let people lowball you like that. This story's called Entitled People Meets Choosing Beggars with a Touch of Malicious Compliance and a Twist. This is the mother of all Reddit posts. But first, the obligatory statements. I'm on mobile and exhausted, so I probably will have typos. The backstory. My best friend through high school and I both enlisted in the military. I went Guard, he went Army Reserves. We talked in our senior year about a town a few hours away that had multiple gold mines and an amazing economy. We talked about renting a spot out there and going to work at the mines to save up some cash and get a good start. This was just idealism, and we had no intent to actually follow through. A few years go by, I married my high school sweetheart, and he married some girl I don't really know how he met. I worked my way up through restaurants while in the Guard, and my district manager offered me a raise, moving expenses, and a promotion within the year if I moved to the gold mining town to open a new restaurant. I jumped on the chance as the pay, $40,000 salary with promotion to $65,000 within the year, and $3,000 for moving was great at 20 years old. This is where the crazy starts. I told my friend, we will call him Jay for jerkwad, that I was getting moved to that town and that my wife and I planned to buy a home there and settle down. He never really got his crap together by this point. His dad died while he was at basic training, and he stayed with me for a good bit. My wife and I felt bad for him and said he could stay with me for a bit while my wife finished college and he could try to make a living here. He got excited, thinking it would be his big chance, and was so grateful for a time. We got to Elko, and for the first 4 to 5 months, he, his wife, and I stayed in a long-term hotel there while I waited for my wife to finish the semester and then to pick a home, finish escrow and all. This drained my pockets, alongside buying food for the 3 of us, but Jay would contribute some of his 2 days a month of duty with the reserves, and that helped some. Needless to say, I blew through a lot of my salary taking care of them, and somehow they just couldn't find work. Well, I was hiring for a new restaurant and had to take on over 100 people, so I offered them both a job. They started eagerly, but very quickly realized that being a waiter is more than just writing orders and goofing off. They immediately became a huge issue, and would often boast that they were my friends and that they were the best at the job and deserved whatever things they thought themselves entitled to. Their first write-up came within maybe 2 weeks at most. They seemed incapable of doing the most basic things, and weren't putting the thought/time into figuring out their job, despite me trying to train them and coach them. They made me look terrible. I ended up having to fire them a month and a half or so in because they refused to do side work and somehow showed that this restaurant, rhymes with pennies, was too hard for them to handle working for. I left that job to work at one of the gold mines. My work history and ethic having secured me a highly paid and amazing position. At gold mines like this, you get hired as a position, but unless you're an engineer or management, you start off just doing menial labor. Think non-stop shoveling tons of ore for 12-hour shift. Made military seem like freaking cake. They do this to prove your work ethic. I made it onto a crew in 3 days. Only one person made it before me. We had our own home by now and moved in maybe 2 months earlier. Jay was still with us, but had still never found another job. My wife was now with us as well, and he absolutely made her life hell. She and I are Mormon and don't drink, or want to go to the movies they're into, so they get the idea in their head that my wife is public enemy number 1. They start talking crap to her and treating her terribly while I'm at the mines working. Rotating shifts, so 4 to 5 hours bus round trip and 12-hour shifts. To the point she stopped leaving the room unless it was to make dinner for when I got home. She didn't talk to me until it was getting bad. Here is where Jay and my wife get into a war. Jay doesn't like where we keep our dishes. He rearranged the cups. Faith didn't talk to them anymore, so she put them back and left a note asking them not to move our cups. Jay then moves every other dish and waits. My wife told me about things by this point, and I walk into the kitchen after a long shift where I pulled 2 hours overtime on top of my shift and the commute, so I'm like 21 hours into a hellish day. I see Jay's malicious compliance and just nope. He's been living with us rent-free and eating our food, playing Xbox all day on our TV, and taking up the entire living room. I call him in, and he sees me in the kitchen and gets this stupid, self-satisfied grin. Cue a huge fight. I ask why the hell he moved everything in my home to spite my wife, and why the hell he couldn't be grateful for the nearly a year of free housing. I rent this house for $1,500 a month. The jobs I got them and they threw away, and why they didn't go to any of the job fairs, which is how I got my mine job. It should be said by this point, I also was in a major car wreck, and despite my injuries qualifying me as disabled, I pushed my body to the limits to keep my job and stay in the National Guard. He starts screaming, "You have no idea what she's like when you're not here." I reply, "True, but sadly I know exactly what you're like when I'm not here. This is her house. You're just a guest." He then picks up the footrest thing from my nice recliner and chucks it across the room in a tantrum. I tell him it's done. He needs to get the hell out now. I won't tolerate him breaking my crap and getting violent. He screams that he'll leave, but "You better help me get my stuff out tonight or I'm not leaving." Smugly, I tell him that no, I'm injured and don't owe you a damn thing. Jay yells back, "You're so bimbo-made, acting like you're all hurt and crap. Freaking female anatomy part." I shoot back. "At least I can provide for my family. Your pregnant wife is gonna be living in the box if you're the provider. But then again, I don't know if you could hold that down either." He started getting up in my face and I told him he could stop threatening me and leave or I'd grab my gun and ensure his threats stop. He leaves and calls two people he knew nearby that for some reason liked him and his wife. The man in that couple loudly threatened me while grabbing Jay's crap, but I just sat outside my room, my wife was inside it, with my gun holstered on my hips and let them get their meager belongings and leave. They stole some of our stuff when they left, but it was worth it to get them out. They also picked their noses and left their boogers on their bedroom walls for months apparently. Disgusting freaking goblins. We let one of my coworkers take the extra room they vacated when he lost his home, and by God, he was so much better than my best friend I'd known and helped through losing multiple family members and tried giving him a shot to get ahead in life. Sorry for the super long post. It's cathartic to post, to be honest. I still can't believe how much of an entitled D-bag Jay was. Dang, 20 years old and you're already doing all that? That's impressive, dude. I know for a fact I'm not making that much at 20 years old. This stuff happens a lot, and it's really sad. You give someone your all to help them out, and they just take advantage. It's way too common. This story is about a childhood friend of mine. We'll call her ChoosingBeggar, and me. I wanted to share it for a while, but didn't find a suitable subreddit. Maybe this is the best place for it, but it's not your everyday choosy beggar. ChoosingBeggar and I are of the same age, born only a month apart in the same neighborhood. Our mothers have been friends since high school and obviously had their maternity leave roughly at the same time. So we'd been raised together, almost like sisters. We have been friends for as long as I can remember. She was my rock whenever I was bullied. I grew very tall very fast, so you can imagine how many times I've been called a giant, a giraffe, etc. I had good grades and liked to read, so people called me a nerd, a dork, a no-lifer all the time. Whenever I went through a breakup and whenever I fought with my mom, and vice versa. In high school, I had the best grades in class, was training track and field very seriously, so I didn't smoke or drink and I only went to parties when there was some really big event. But ChoosingBeggar chose a slightly different path. She had started partying multiple times a week, skipping school and smoking. We were both mature enough that we realized we're simply different people and that our different paths don't mean we can't be best friends. This was true until a few years ago, when I started wondering if the emotional blackmail was still worth it. Now, the ChoosingBeggar story begins. I went on to study chemistry and am working on my PhD at the moment, while she went to a cosmetic school, which she didn't finish. Anyway, she got a job at a salon and she's doing nails and lash extensions. I was happy and excited for her because she always wanted to do something in cosmetics. When she was practicing her techniques, I was her model all the time. And I didn't care if I had to lay still for 5 hours, if she accidentally glued my lashes together, filed my nails a bit too much, etc. But now that she's experienced and good at her job, she doesn't need me modeling for her anymore. And I honestly don't want to get my nails done because I ruin them after like 3 days in the lab, and lash extensions simply don't appeal to me. Choosing Beggar understands that nails are impractical to me, but she doesn't want to get it into her head that I don't want my lashes done. So sometimes when I run out of excuses, I can't even go to her salon. I always insist on paying at least something. They charge clients $80, but she never wants to take my money. We even got into a serious argument because of that. Her reasoning is that I'm de facto her sister. We don't have any other siblings, and she will be dead before she takes my money because I gave her so much already, always supporting her even when her mom didn't. But she takes other kinds of payments. She uses the fact that she does lashes for me all the time. For example, "You have to spend a whole weekend with me," in the spa resort of her choosing, and me paying obviously, and she doesn't care that I have work to do or study. "Cook for me, take me to drinks because I do my work for free." We always go to a restaurant of her choosing. Expensive, of course, and I always have to pay. At the beginning, I said to myself that this is totally reasonable. She does her work for free, so I'll treat her to a few dinners, help her in any way possible, etc. However, it started to escalate from an occasional dinner or drink getaway to everyday stuff like, "Get groceries for me, but not from certain cheap store. Buy me this $150 cashmere sweater. I did your lashes last week anyway." And things like that. Even on a psychological level, I feel like I can't disagree with her because she becomes defensive, passive-aggressive, and straight out mean to me. Also, whenever I try to drift away from her and her stupid salon, she basically blackmails me, and I quote, "You don't want to risk our friendship for that, do you?" So again, because I don't want to lose her, I can't even go to her salon. I don't know what to do anymore. It's emotionally exhausting and I feel trapped. Okay, buddy, slow up, okay? Okay. Very, very easy solution, okay? Talk to her about this, okay? Because you guys are obviously close, or at least were at one point, and she still thinks you are. Or at least she treats you like you are. Anyways, talk to her, dude. She's basically your sister, so you just talk to her and be like, "Hey man, I feel like I'm being kind of used," and she'll be like, "But I do lashes for you," and you just be like, "I don't want lashes," and also, you're just doing lashes for me so you can be like, "Hey, I do your lashes, buy me this yacht." So yeah, just talk to her, and if she understands, good. If not, good riddance, because you don't want someone like that in your life until they can appreciate you. Look at me, I'm like a more streamlined and efficient version of Dr. Phil. I'm kidding. I don't need no ranch up in here, just my words. Moving on, I'm kidding, I don't have an ego. That big, at least. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.